Blaze.
Okay, James Bennett at Tullamarine, thanks very much for that. Thanks. Now, as you can see from that message across the bottom of the screen, the unemployment figure has just come through. We've got our business editor, Peter Ryan, with us. Peter, welcome. The expectation was it was going to remain at 5.3, but it's fallen.
That's right. The expectation was for the jobless rate to remain at 5.3%, but in a bit of a turn-up for the books, it's fallen in the month of September to 5.2%. Overall, 20,400 new jobs, 10,800 new full-time jobs, and that's double expectations, and many economists had been expecting that the jobless rate might either stay steady or slightly tick up a bit and add to the case for an interest rate cut on Melbourne Cup Day next month.
Yeah, because the longer term outlook, as well as I was speaking to someone the other day, and they were expecting it to get at some stage to 5.5 over the next year.
Yeah, and the anecdotal evidence around was that employers have been very cautious recently and had been thinking more about part-time and casual workers rather than
job
full-time.
ads falling.
That's right, and all the expectations were that the jobs situation was not as good as expectations were. Now, just looking at what's happening with the Australian dollar, before that news hit, it was 101.5 US cents, gone over 102 US cents. So expectations that there will be a rate cut on Melbourne Cup Day appear to be falling back, and money is pouring back into the Australian dollar on some expectations that the dollar will continue to rise.
How do you make sense of this? You've been watching these figures for a long time now. It seems over the past 6 months there are conflicting figures day by day, and it's so hard to tell what the trend is.
That's right, and the interesting thing too, just over the last 24 hours, has been the dollar. Normally, you would expect the dollar to be falling, given that the expectations were for a rate cut, but around about this time yesterday the Australian dollar was at about 98.7 US cents. Overnight it went to around about 101.5 US cents, close to 102. Normally the dollar would be falling back. The US dollar hasn't been falling, so there are a lot of different things going on at the moment, and of course a lot of mixed messages given the situation in Europe and some of the plans for the European Union for the bailout of some of those distressed states.
And Pete, is this figure, the unemployment figure, probably the biggest influence on the Reserve Bank when it meets to talk about interest rates?
Well, I certainly made the point in the last minutes, Joe, that if the jobless rate ticked up, they didn't use it in so many words, but if the jobless rate ticked up, or that inflation was showing signs of moderating, they might have room for an easing. And of course we still have to wait for the official inflation figures to come out the week after next to really get that latest evidence as to where inflation is heading. But just judging on the jobs market at the moment, the Reserve Bank wouldn't be thinking that they would have the trigger to cut interest rates in November.
Okay, Peter Ryan, thanks very much for that. So just repeating that news, it's just come through, conflicting economic news once again. The unemployment rate was 5.3 last month, or the month before. It's fallen to 5.2 now, despite expectations that it was going to remain at about 5.3.